Greetings. I'm Detective Sergeant First Class Harry Gavel, Camden County Prosecutor's Office, Homicide Division, retired. Following is an episode from the murder capital of the nation. These stories are true, oftentimes brutal. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This story recounts the details of a real homicide investigation. All information presented is taken from public court records, law enforcement files, and direct investigative experience. The names of the victims and individuals involved are used with the utmost respect. No part of this story is intended to exploit or sensationalize their sufferings. As a retired homicide investigator, I believe these stories matter. To honor the victims, to understand the truth, and to bring closure to the families left behind. This story I call Death Through the Door. You know, they say you never hear the shot that kills you. Well, this poor soul never even saw it coming. Alejandro Guerrero. He was a 20-year-old Mexican immigrant. He had only been in America for 20 days. He joined a group of relatives and friends, who had taken up residence in the 500 block of York Street in Camden, New Jersey. There were approximately 18 people living under one roof in that small 3-bedroom Camden brick home. All of them were Mexican immigrants. They had come to America in search of the American dream that they all dreamed about growing up in Mexico. Alejandro was currently unemployed. He had just gotten here. But he was in the process of being hired on as a migrant farm worker, like all of the adult men and most of the adult women living there at that house. He would be working under the acronym MSFW, which stood for Migrant Seasonal Farm Workers. He'd be working there at minimum wage. Well, at this year, 1996, minimum wage was $4.25 to $4.75 an hour. But many migrant workers were paid far less. They were paid by the bucket or by the bushel, not paid by the clock. They would be up long before sunrise, walk to Camden's bus terminal, board buses, and be transported to the farmlands of South Jersey. There they would be performing back-breaking work, bent over in the hot sun from sunup to sundown, not getting back home until late at night. It was no accident that the intruders in this case waited until 11:30 p.m. Waited till 11:30 p.m. to bring the knock of death to their door. They knew their routine there. They knew it was late harvesting season, October the 27th to be exact. They knew that was the end of the main harvest season. They knew that some workers wouldn't get home until long after sunset. And since they believed the workers all worked all summer long, that there would surely be money that they'd be saving up, and that money would be somewhere stashed in the house. So the plan was set. It was almost midnight. It was North Camden, New Jersey. Middle of the Badlands, the 500 block of York Street. Under the cover of darkness, on October the 27th, at approximately 11:27 p.m., 3 armed masked men knocked at that door. Inside, the residents were expecting guests for a birthday party for a little girl who lived there. The door was opened. It wasn't any guest. These 3 intruders were full of bad intentions. The door was quickly slammed shut in their masked faces. But they were not deterred. Several blind gunshots rang out. They were fired through the closed door. In that instant, that little girl's birthday party was no longer the focus. Her uncle was lying shot dead on the couch, just feet from her, just inside the front living room. He was struck with 2 of those bullets. Both hit him during that barrage in the upper torso on his left side. The man who opened the door initially, miraculously, was uninjured after taking 4 shots. All 4 bullets struck the edges of his baggy t-shirt, missing his flesh. That made us pause for a moment. The masked men barged into the house with guns smoking. With all of the raw screaming and hysteria going on inside the house, they quickly ran. They ran out of the front half-open door and disappeared into the pitch-black darkness of the fall North Camden night, taking nothing with them, and more importantly, leaving nothing, only death and broken dreams. Inside, they were expecting invited guests, not 3 masked, armed, and desperate North Camden killers with robbery on their minds. Let me tell you, folks, this story is not only true, it was personal for me, but not at all about me. Get that clear. It was averse to anything that I was thinking of when I got the call. It was a very challenging murder case from the very start. Number 1, inside the residence, no one spoke a word of English. Number 2, it was York Street in North Camden, New Jersey, the murder capital of the nation once again. The general public in North Camden lived by a code of silence. Snitches get stitches. To give the police, especially homicide detectives, information on a murder case, no less? Nah. They'd be signing their own death warrant. In other words, their lips were sealed tighter than a whale's ass, and that's waterproof. However, given all the obstacles, we wouldn't be deterred either. Make no mistake about that. Not on this case. This case was different. Different for me especially. This case stirred something inside of me. If you've read my book, you know that I grew up poor, dirt poor, in Camden, New Jersey. There were 9 of us, 9 kids that is, me being the eldest. Birthday parties? Forget about it. They cost money. Money which we didn't have. I don't ever remember having even one birthday party, not only for me, but for any of my brothers and sisters, ever. I thought this little girl was robbed of hers, and that hit me hard. On my first job as a kid, I got my working papers when I was 15 years old, because I had to. I said we were poor. I had to go to work. My first job was picking tomatoes on a farm in Blackwood, New Jersey, bending down all day long in the hot summer's heat. I believe I was getting 25 cents a bushel of tomatoes back then. I was 15 years old. I was born in 1949. Do the math. I did that job not because I wanted to. Believe me, I hated every day of it. Not only was it backbreaking, bent over all day in the hot sun, sweating, making 25 cents a bushel, I didn't like it. I didn't feel like I was living up to my potential. I had to do that. This house on York Street was more like a farm worker's dormitory than it was a home. The young men and women who lived there were a house full of hard-working poor people who were doing the work that was available in order to survive in America and reach for their dream. There was something about this case that grabbed hold of me and wouldn't let go. Now, I worked plenty of murders in Camden. Violence didn't shake me. It came with the job. But this job was different. 18 people packed under one roof trying to survive. No English. Most detectives would have seen that as a wall. I didn't, because when I looked at that house, I didn't see witnesses. I saw myself. So when I learned this little girl's family was planning her birthday party late at night, after a full day of back-breaking work in the fields out in the farms, that hit me. And when I saw that those killers with robbery in their hearts, in a blind moment of firing bullets through a closed door, not only recklessly and ruthlessly destroying a little girl's birthday, not to mention her innocence, but killing an innocent relative of hers. Alejandro Guerrera, a 20-year-old immigrant here for 20 days and hadn't made his first 20 bucks yet. That wasn't just another case anymore. That made it seem personal. I wanted to do everything in my power to make sure that the men who took his life and a little girl's birthday dream would pay for it. For me, it gave me reasons to push hard. I wasn't about to let 3 mass killers just walk away and get away with it because they were wearing masks. Those masks challenged me. They challenged us to unmask them. After stealing a life and something I never had growing up, A child's birthday party. A child's birthday party. Well, they came masked, and they delivered death, for sure. But before this one was over, I was going to make sure that my Camden assigned Detective Jerome Boyd and myself would unmask them, all three of them, and apply justice. They will get their cake, and they will eat it too. That was our strategy. Keep a keen ear to the street. Anyone picked up in North Camden for a crime, we would be alerted. They would be interviewed, not only about their case, but any knowledge about our case. What was the word on the street? What did they know? What were they hearing? We would hit the streets hard every day seeking information, pulling guys off corners when probable cause was present, of course. Patting them down for weapons, drugs, putting heat on the street. Bad boys who knew who we were and what we wanted. Cards were given out. The street was our only hope for success. To be honest, my partner was not as motivated as I initially in the case. He was a Camden guy, like me. He was a Camden detective. He knew our challenges and the environment in which this occurred. There were no identifications of the killers or suspects. No witnesses as to their identities. No English was spoken inside the home. And when cops talked to people on the street, they didn't speak English. It was also North Camden. You got to consider that. North Camden, where murder was no stranger. Every day I would go over to the Camden Detective Bureau. Peppy and I would discuss how we were getting nowhere in this case. Frustration wasn't an expected conclusion. It was a constant in this case. So what facts did we have? Well, number one, we had 3 masked men apparently planning their timing to hit this house. They obviously watched the house, had knowledge, knew people were coming and going and knocking on the door, so they used that in their strategy. They knocked at the door at approximately 11:27 p.m. They didn't kick the door in, they knocked. Probably because they had the house under surveillance and they saw party guests coming and knocking on the door. Number 4, 4 bullets struck that resident, hitting his shirt. He escaped injury. Number 5, the victim, Alejandro Guerrera, age 20, new arrival, unemployed, was just inside sitting on a couch. 2 bullets struck him in the side of his upper torso. He was transported by ambulance to Cooper Hospital Trauma, where he was pronounced DOA. For those of you that are new to this, that means dead on arrival. Number 6, the family and friends at the home were preparing to celebrate a little girl's birthday party at the house at 11:30 p.m. It was late. It was late due to the fact that the residents there, the migrants, all got home late. after working the fields all day. Plus, they had to depend on transport to get back to Camden from the farms. Number 6, spent shell casings and ballistics information revealed only the caliber of the weapon used. It also was proof that lands and grooves were legible if we were ever able to recover the murder weapon. Nothing else of evidential value was found at that time. Number 7, no one of the 18 people in the home speak English. All are of Mexican descent. All are fairly new to the residence. All eligible adults have work visas and green cards which provided them permission to work in the United States. They were here legally. The victim was unemployed and, however, he was securing a picking job on a farm in Cumberland County. That job was imminent. Number 8, interpreters were utilized to provide case details. A list of those details and information and identities are in the file. Statements taken are being transcribed for further review from Spanish to English. Number 8, case status, open, pending. Not to beat a dead horse here, but we pounded the streets, man. We pounded and we pounced. We pounced on offenders in North Camden for weeks on end. Weeks turned into months, but it paid off in spades. We eventually cracked it wide open. We learned that one of the perps was a juvenile with very little police contact. Well, in our world, he would be considered the weakest link. He was. We grabbed him up. We brought him to the prosecutor's homicide unit, and we squeezed that kid like he was the last tomato, and we were making tomato soup for 18 people. He cracked like a bolt of thunder in an electrical storm. He gave up his accomplices, which included the shooter, the prearranged plan of robbery. Yes, they did stake out the house. They believed that there was an event going on inside. That's why they knocked instead of crashing the door in. The motive for the robbery, gave that up. The gun information, the caliber, who had it last, the last known whereabouts of that gun, the whole 9 yards. Well, now we went and we gathered a team of fugitive detectives from the Gotcha Squad, I call them. The Camden County Sheriff's Department Fugitive Squad. Fulton Sampona, a.k.a. Hook. Hook was an old Camden guy, friend of mine. We were childhood friends. We used to go to Bare Ass Beach together in Blackwood and Skinny Dip. He was also my old schoolmate at Bonsall School, grade school in Camden. In short order, we rounded them up, all 3 of them. They were all 3 facing serial, criminal, prosecutorial, and criminally prosecutable cases. Following is a reading of the newspaper article relative to the case. You'll hear that these immigrants were already being extorted by the criminal drug dealing thugs who thrived in North Camden. We believe that the reason the killers went to this job wearing masks was because they were in fact already extorting the residents there and would surely be recognized if they went in without masks and tried to pull off the robbery. 3 charged in Camden slaying, bail set for 2 in Camden killing. Both the Courier Post and the Philadelphia Inquirer carried the story. The Courier Post by Renee Winkler, John Way Jennings, and Larry Lewis. Alejandro Guerrero was hit by shots that ripped through a closed door during a robbery attempt. 2 men and a 17-year-old accomplice have been charged in an October 27 attack on a North Camden house that interrupted a birthday party and left a recently arrived Mexican immigrant dead of gunshot wounds. Assistant Camden County Prosecutor Gregory Smith said yesterday that the shooting erupted during an attempted robbery by a group of neighborhood men and teenagers. Investigators said additional arrests were likely. Prosecutors said Ramon Burgos, 24, of the 100 block of State Street, and Angel Alicia, 18, of the 900 block of North 6th Street, were arrested Thursday night and charged with felony murder. An unnamed male juvenile was charged in the crime yesterday. Camden County Superior Court Judge Isaiah Steinberg yesterday ordered Burgos and Alicia held in the Camden County Jail on $175,000 cash bail each. The juvenile was being held in the Camden County Youth Detention Center in Blackwood, New Jersey, officials said. Steinberg said Burgos, who also uses the name Enrique Nobles, already was wanted for failing to appear in court on October the 25th to answer a charge of receiving a stolen car in June and fleeing from police. Burgos told the judge he was in Puerto Rico in October, testifying in the murder trial of a man he said had killed a friend of his. Investigators said Alejandro Guerrero, 20, of the 500 block of York Street, was sitting on a sofa in the living room of the home at 11:27 p.m. on October the 27th, waiting for the start of a birthday party planned for a child there, when someone knocked on the front door. An unidentified male relative of Guerrero's opened the door and was confronted by the 2 men wearing masks and armed with handguns. The relative slammed the door shut, but the gunman fired several shots, which pierced the closed door, police said. Detective Sergeant Charles Jackson of the Camden Police said 4 of the bullets ripped through a baggy t-shirt the relative was wearing. None of them touched his skin, officials said, but 2 of the shots struck Guerrero in the upper right side. He was rushed to Cooper Hospital University Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. Jackson praised the work of Camden Detective Jerome Boyd and investigator Harry Glemser of the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. They had nothing to go on the night of the killing, Jackson said. They brought several people in for questioning and eventually identified suspects, he said. Investigators said several people of Mexican descent who had recently come to Camden were living in the York Street house. Some people from the drug trade in the neighborhood began extorting money from them, police said. Officials said the suspect decided to rob that house on York Street because they believed people living there had jobs and probably had saved some money. After shots were fired through the door, the three fled. Not to get away with it. We put out a dragnet and got their asses. Now, I'll just mention briefly, there was the 16th annual Law Enforcement Appreciation Day coming up. There was a luncheon being held May the 7th, 1997 at the Wyndham Franklin Plaza Hotel. That was being presented by the Citizens Crime Commission of Delaware Valley. Several New Jersey and Philadelphia police officers were to be honored there for various arrests and life-saving situations in which they were part of. The Honorable Governor at that time of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Tom Ridge, was to be the keynote speaker and give out the awards. Detective Jerome Boyd and I were invited to attend that and were cited to be recipients of the LEAD and get awards that day for our work in this case. We attended it, it was no big deal, but it was something to invite the family to and I guess enjoy. But again, it wasn't about that at all. I just wanted to mention that because that's the only case that I was ever involved in all of my years where we were invited to a Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So that was very nice. Now, I didn't grow up with birthday parties. Not that I can remember. None at all. So when that little girl lost hers, well, that stayed with me. Years later, after I retired, my wife threw me a surprise 50th birthday party, which I'll never forget. It was a first for me, the only birthday party to date that I've ever had. I like parties. My family was there. She located and invited my best childhood friend, Bobby Dingler. We ran the streets of Camden together as young kids for years. He's in my book. He's one of the original hooligans. Read my book and you'll see why I say that. But after all the regular attendees of the party had left, after hours, me and my best friend sat in my hot tub, smoking cigars and drinking some fine wine. We were talking there until 3 o'clock in the morning or even later. Just sitting, loving each other's company and remembering the old times with my best friend in life. And I remember thinking, this is what it's supposed to be. This is what she never got. And Alejandro Guerrero got what he didn't deserve. The rest of his birthdays stolen from him. The end. This is Detective Gavel. Tune in next time for another true murder mystery from the murder capital. See you next time.